Hey everyone, I'm CytherGreen from Server 73, and welcome to the very first Infinity Kingdom Community Spotlight on my channel. This is something new I wanted to try out, giving the spotlight to the players who make IK such a unique community. For our very first guest, I'm excited to introduce Ray, a veteran who's been around since the early days. He has stories about the game's beginnings, life as a mostly free-to-play player, and advice for anyone looking to stay competitive. Let's start at the beginning with how Ray first discovered Infinity Kingdom. Now that we have the intro all done, Ray, how did you first discover Infinity Kingdom? And what made you decide to give it a try?
Hello, thank you for having me as a guest. To answer your question, Yuzu back then did marketing by YouTubers from other gacha strategy games. One of the ones I watched back then, also an F2P in Lords Mobile, did a series of videos. I liked the graphics, and decided to try it out. It caught me with the graphics, and then kept me with the bugs.
So after those first impressions, what was the game like back then compared to how it feels now?
I think it was one of the earlier games to feature this type of strategy system with action points and a more interactive battle mechanic. Back then the game was much tougher. Immortals were harder to get, there were fewer of them overall, and the number of available skills was low. It made sense to chase any of the KVK skills you could find. Now, even though things are easier in some ways, it can feel like a rough storm for new players. The grind is steeper and there's a lot more to manage. Many of the old metas don't work anymore, and while they've opened up a lot of new skills, the game's in a tricky place where endgame success often comes down to the amount of legendary skills and chaos immortals you have.
Yeah, that's true. Back then, getting one decent skill felt like a huge win. Now there's so much variety that new players can get lost just trying to figure out what actually matters. You've been through all those changes firsthand. What servers have you called home over the years?
My journey started in 28, which has since been absorbed into one of the earlier merged servers, then to 57, and now I am on 73.
That's quite the trail. You've seen the game evolve across some major eras. What do you remember most from those early days? Your first alliance, first big fight, maybe even your first KVK?
My start was rough. I came from Lords Mobile just wanting to play for fun, and I pretty much did everything wrong. I didn't join the biggest alliance, and instead tried to build my own. I ignored the plans of players who were mostly jumpers coming in to lock down the server for their group. I went full water, refused to join the stronger alliance during KVK, and ended up playing solo against a few rogue players. To top it off, I picked every skill that got nerfed in the next patch, and never even did the spider on server 28. Basically a textbook example of what not to do.
Yeah, I think every longtime player's got one of those how not to start stories. Yours just sounds like the deluxe edition. So that was Ray's early journey. A rocky start, a few nerfed skills, and a lot of lessons learned the hard way. But what's even more impressive is how he's managed to stay competitive without spending a cent. Let's talk about what it's like playing free-to-play in Infinity Kingdom. Ray, you've been playing free-to-play for years now. What made you take that approach in the first place?
I was F2P in Lords Mobile as well, and if I didn't spend there, I definitely wasn't going to spend here. In Lords Mobile, you could beat almost anyone just by having more troops. Infinity Kingdom's system is completely different, but at first I assumed all games worked the same way. Just build a big army and win your first 10 fights against anyone. Turns out, not true at all.
Yeah, Infinity Kingdom doesn't really let you brute force your way through 10 fights. Sounds like that lesson hit early. So, what's been the hardest part of staying F2P all this time?
Staying competitive in events to earn rewards, and choosing a strong march that you can keep upgrading all the way to endgame. Unfortunately, having an alt is also necessary.
That makes sense. Having an alt really helps cover those gaps. especially in grind-heavy events. For newer F2P players just starting out, what advice would you give them?
Don't just stick with the water march the game gives you by default. If you're unsure what to build, go with fire and check out some fire march guides. Until your fire team is ready, don't be afraid to use rare or elite immortals as stepping stones. Also, don't rush your Lord level. Keeping it lower makes Arena more manageable for free-to-play players, since you'll face weaker opponents. Even as a smaller player, try to join a bigger alliance for the gift rewards. And only spend purple stones on your main skills, and always check a guide first. Avoid blue skills, and be careful, some of those purple ones can be misleading. You make guides on those skills, so your viewers should definitely look them up.
I like that plug. You heard him, everyone. Check the Skill School playlist before you waste those purple stones. Alright, last one for this part. Are there any strategies, events, or skills you'd call must-haves for free-to-play players?
For skills, Fighting Master is a really solid choice. When it comes to planning, I'd say keep some strategic reserves. Save troops and resources so you can make the most out of point-based events like King of the Hill or Infernal Assault. As for events, Contention of Relics is one of the best. Just make sure your alliance puts in the effort, because it's really rewarding. Don't skip Rebels, and don't neglect Mysterium. I know it can be tough to keep up with, but it pays off over time. And of course, KVK is the big one. Easily the most important inter-server event to take part in.
Great advice. Pacing your pushes and planning around those events really does make the grind more efficient for F2P players. So we've talked about the early days in the F2P grind. Now let's zoom out a bit. Ray's been around long enough to see the game transform more than once, from simple beginnings to the complex meta we all wrestle with today. Let's talk about the game's evolution. Ray, you've been around long enough to see a lot of changes. What's the biggest shift in the game since you started?
When mixed marches became viable, and later when Chaos Immortals entered the battlefield, everything changed. Specializations helped level the field for lower spenders for a while, but with how legendary skills and Chaos Immortals are being marketed, there's now a clear divide between the two groups. Other major moments were the rise of the double shield meta and the Baldwin snipe meta.
The Baldwin snipe meta. I was only weeks away from completing Corrosive Power before he got nerfed. I'm still feeling some kind of way about that, actually. But let's move on to the next question. What about patches or updates? Which one had the biggest impact on your own gameplay?
The patch that introduced the Frostborn event was a major turning point for the game. It gave players a real sense of purpose, but it also wiped out a lot of servers at the same time. The second big shift came when KVK was reworked with the Federation system and the new shops that came with it, which completely changed how alliances approached the event.
Yeah, Frostborn, or KVK as most players know it, really marked a new era. It gave players a real purpose and something to rally behind, but it also pushed a lot of smaller servers past their limits. Then came the Federation update, which changed everything again. Alliances had to plan together, coordinate across multiple groups, and think on a much bigger scale than before. It completely reshaped how KVK worked and how players approached teamwork. Now we've got even more updates on the way, and I can't help but wonder if we'll see another big shift like those earlier ones. Thinking back on all those changes, is there anything from the old days you wish was still around? Any mechanics or events you miss?
I will forever miss the times where Energy Burst and Chase were unchecked, and Attila had that higher chance to silence.
Right? I think the Attila nerf was the first one people really made a fuss over. It also felt like one of the earliest nails in the coffin for the water meta. So to wrap up this part, what do you think the game has done right when it comes to keeping players engaged over the years?
Well, in my opinion, the game's done a good job of gradually making Immortals from all elements except Chaos more accessible, as well as opening up older Triss skills to free-to-play players.
Yeah, that's one of the better moves they've made. letting free-to-play players slowly catch up. It keeps the community healthier when more people can build teams without needing to spend. It's definitely a step in the right direction. We've talked about how the game has changed over the years, but let's shift gears a bit. I want to dig into your personal side as a player, the moments, lessons, and motivations that have kept you going all this time. What's been your proudest achievement in Infinity Kingdom so far?
Recently, reaching VIP 15.
Congratulations! That's a big milestone, especially as a free-to-play player. Reaching VIP 15 takes a lot of consistency and patience. It means carefully budgeting your gems for VIP levels and making the most of the VIP points you get from Alliance members who spend. You've come a long way since those early days. If you could go back and give new player Ray one piece of advice, what would it be?
Build fire. Don't take on Alliance leadership. And keep your Lord level low.
Right? I would advise my earlier self to stay out of Alliance leadership as well. The headaches I would have avoided. Alright, next question. What keeps you logging in every day after all this time?
The players on the servers. It's a social game too. And during KVK, we bash on other servers to blow off some real-world stress and have a good laugh together as a group.
I get that. The community side, the jokes, the rivalries, the shared suffering doing KVK. It keeps things fun even when the grind gets rough. IKDC is filled with interesting characters, some helpful, some funny, some trolls. It's a good community. Okay, so that brings us to our very last question. Looking forward, what are your hopes for the future of Infinity Kingdom and its community?
I keep hoping the developers find a way to balance out those Kraken marches so a full rally of regular players can actually take one down. Right now, just a few maxed accounts can solo entire alliances, and that really takes the fun out of the game.
That's a really good point to end on. Balance is such a big part of what keeps strategy games alive, and when everyone feels like they've got a fighting chance, it brings out the best in the community. Ray, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your journey. From the early days of buggy battles to the current Chaos Immortal era, you've seen it all and managed to stay competitive while keeping the game fun. To everyone watching, I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Infinity Kingdom Community Spotlight. This series is all about celebrating the players who make the game what it is. The veterans, the theory crafters, the jokers in World Chat, and everyone in between. If you'd like to take the spotlight next, leave a comment below or contact me in-game. I'd love to hear your story and share it with the community. I'm ScytherGreen from Server 73, thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in Norheim.